So we will start with Carol Howes, and she is a retired Michigan Department of Corrections warden.
Thank you, Lois. This is fine. I'm a little wobbly on my feet. I've had 2 open heart surgeries in the last 14 months, which the first was 2 weeks before my retirement. I say that not because I want your sympathy or even comments about it, but just to let you know how important I feel this meeting is. It probably would have been much easier for me to sit home and watch my weeds grow. But I've prepared some written statements to try to keep it to 3 minutes. I retired in May 2012 after 27 years as warden of the Coldwater prisons. I actually had worked for the state of Michigan for 39 years. My first job with the department was to investigate and respond to prisoner grievances for the director. Prior to working for the department, I was aide to the House Corrections Committee, so I'm a little bit familiar with the state capitol and some of the workings here. A few years earlier, one of the worst prison riots in U.S. history took place in Attica, New York. My concerns about prison conditions and my support of treatment programs goes back about 40 years to the time when I first started working here in the House of Representatives for the Corrections Committee. We need to ensure humane prison environments where treatment programs can thrive and prisoners who want to change their lives can succeed. For many prisoners, their first taste of success happens during incarceration. Prior to that, they maybe feel like kind of lost souls in our society, and if I can't be good, maybe I can be good at being bad. You know, I've seen a lot of prisoners over the years that have that kind of attitude. So I'm really concerned about changing attitudes. It's customary for the department director to give retiring staff a letter of appreciation for their years of service. In Director Hines' letter to me, he acknowledged our floral and garden projects, the thousands of pounds of vegetables given to local food banks, and the first prison rescue dog program, which saved thousands of dogs from shelters. Director Hines also said, quote, "We should always remember one prisoner at a time through programming and community involvement. We can teach prisoners that there is a place for them in our world where they can give back. These projects and others teach prisoners responsibility and the need to give something back to society." I've deliberately chosen not to talk about the formal programs like GEDs and ABE testing and vote programs and that, because I realize and recognize that those programs all take legislative funding, and there's an awful lot the Department of Corrections and individual prisons can do. Short of that, if they would just utilize some of the talent and volunteers in their local communities to create other types of treatment programs. So that's really what I'm talking about here. My concerns about our prison system, and this certainly isn't unique to Michigan, is that custody and security so overwhelm treatment that it's difficult to create an environment where change can take place. Treatment-oriented staff are often viewed as with suspicion by custody staff. They're considered too friendly do-gooders who just don't understand those dangerous felons. Every project that I started in Coldwater was initially resisted by custody staff. Yet during the Northside prison riots in Michigan in the early 1980s, it was treatment and housing staff who were first sent into the prison yard to try to get those prisoners to lock back up in their cells. The thinking was that those staff would know prisoners best and that prisoners would be more apt to trust them. Certainly custody and security staff have an important role to play in ensuring the safety of staff, prisoners, and the general public. What we shouldn't lose sight of is a longer-range public safety goal. If 98% of prisoners return to their communities, we'd better make sure that they come back out to their homes with a different mindset and attitude than what they brought to prison with them. Certainly, custody staff need to realize that treatment is just as important a function as safety and security in our prison system. Changing one prisoner at a time. Let me give you a few examples of where I've seen that prisoners have changed their attitude and made a new life for themselves. The prisoner who went to Marquette Branch Prison at age 16, who ended up working as a geriatric aide at Lakeland while I was the warden there prior to his release. He drove 4 hours on slippery roads to my home on Christmas Eve to introduce me to his new wife and to tell me how proud he was that he'd just gotten a promotion at an auto repair shop where he works. The parolee who got a job at Petco in Ohio, one of the last dogs that he trained, he saw on Pet Finders. The dog had been returned by a young couple who both worked, and it just wasn't working out as far as a home placement for the dog. He asked if he could adopt the dog, and the outside group that owned the dog facilitated that adoption. And now the parolee and the dog go to work every day at Petco. Good stuff. That's great. The former prisoner who got a job moving furniture and happened to move some furniture for my brother. When he connected the last name, he proudly said that he had been on Warden Howes' special projects crews at Lakeland. The former prisoner who regained his license to practice law, who visited me in the hospital to thank me for believing in him. The lifer and other gardeners who were harvesting 2,000 cabbages for local food banks. I could give you dozens of examples of prisoners who have changed their attitudes because of treatment projects and programs. I am as proud of them as any parent could be of their child in terms of their successes. The cost of operating the Department of Corrections places a tremendous burden on taxpayers. There needs to be more transparency in how prisons are operated and more support of volunteers and treatment-oriented staff. There needs to be legislative oversight and involvement in our prison system to ensure that tax dollars are well spent and that long-range public safety interests are being met. I want to thank you very much for your time.